I was fixing the boutonniere on my son's lapel when the band struck a bright chord and the room lifted like a tide. White linen, silver cutlery, and the lake outside turned the windows into mirrors. My son is Michael, the groom, kind, unguarded, a man who says thank you to the waiter and means it. He smiled at me, his eyes shining the way they did when he was 8, and brought home a crooked clay mug and called it art. Then my phone buzzed in my clutch. One vibration, a second, a text flashing against the glow of the screen. 4 short sentences, no punctuation wasted. Leave quietly. Don't tell the groom. I read it once, then twice. The words settled heavy in my chest like a stone sinking through deep water. I did not look at Michael. I did not ask who sent it. I pressed my hand to his sleeve and felt the warmth of him under the fabric, then let go. I whispered that I needed a breath. The room smelled of lilies and perfume. Laughter ricocheted off glass and silver. A photographer called for the wedding party to gather. I stepped back. I smiled. I moved toward the side corridor, where staff carried trays of champagne, and the clink of glass sounded like chimes. The message offered no reason, only a command. Leave quietly. So I did. I kept my shoulders square and my face soft. A mother leaving for air, nothing more. I passed the cake, 5 tiers, sugar flowers wired into swirls. I passed my son's bride, Sabrina, glowing, careful, eyes everywhere and nowhere at once. She did not see me slip behind the curtain by the service door. The corridor cut the noise in half. The floor changed from carpet to tile. The air cooled. A young woman waited by an ice bin, dark suit, hair tied back, a badge clipped to her belt. She was the assistant manager of the venue. Her name tag read Nina. She looked like someone who had learned to move without being noticed. She lifted her gaze and said my name before I gave it. Mrs. Hartley, come with me, please. Her voice sat low, careful, practiced. She did not ask if I had received the text. She acted as if she had sent it. I followed her past racks of clean glasses, past a trolley of silver covers stacked like small moons. She pushed open a gray door. The sound of the band blurred down to a thump. We stepped into the loading bay, where vans idled with a quiet growl. The sky over the lake was powdered blue. Gulls crossed it like arrows. 2 people stood by a marked sedan. A woman in a navy jacket. A man with a notebook, both with the posture of those who watch for a living. The woman stepped forward first. Sergeant Linda Ruiz, City Police. The man raised his badge. Detective Aaron Cho. I looked from one to the other. They looked back, steady, courteous, ready. Nina set a black binder on a metal table near the door. Her hands shook once, then steadied. You needed to see this now, not later, she said. I work here, assistant manager. I was in the bridal suite earlier. I saw a notary, who is not on our vendor list. I saw forms I did not recognize. Sergeant Ruiz kept her eyes on me and nodded toward the binder. Ma'am, we will explain, but first, may we step through what you are about to hear? I placed my clutch on the table. My fingers were cold. I am Teresa Hartley. People call me Tess. I am the groom's mother. Saying it out loud planted me on my own ground. You texted me to leave. You told me not to tell my son. We did, Detective Cho said. I sent the words. Nina brought us what she found. We moved quickly. We set a perimeter outside the banquet hall so you could walk out without alarm. We did it to protect you and to protect the wedding from panic. Nina opened the binder. Inside lay photocopies with yellow tabs and handwritten notes. The edges of documents starred and underlined. I saw these on a table in the bridal suite, near a pen and a neat stack of champagne flutes. I was bringing ice. I thought they were beauty schedules or vendor invoices. Then I read a line. I took pictures. I printed them in our office. I told security. I asked for a manager. I realized I was the manager on duty. She looked at me. Guilt tried to rise. Duty held it down. I am sorry to bring this to you on his wedding day, but I could not pretend I did not see. Ruiz gestured gently. An invitation, a promise. We believe these papers relate to a plan that targets you, ma'am. A plan designed to move control, to move assets, under the cover of a happy day. Our first priority is your safety. Our second is the integrity of any future investigation. My mouth tasted of metal. Fear often tastes that way. The music inside rose. The horns carried through the wall like a memory. My son, I said. His name is Michael. He is kind. He is open. He would never agree to harm me. Kind people still drown in other people's plans, Cho said. His voice had the patience of a teacher. We are not asking you to accuse anyone. We are asking you to let us show you what we think we know, then choose what you want to do, quietly, carefully. Nina slid a single sheet forward, the title line bold, the second sheet with a heading that made my stomach flip. I read a paragraph. I read a signature block, unsigned, waiting. A pen imprint told a small story. Someone had practiced a name on a page beneath. The air felt thinner. I put my hand flat on the table. The metal was cool, real, steady. Why not tell Michael? I asked. If this is about me, why not tell my son? Because the room has ears, Ruiz said, and because whoever benefits from your silence wants a scene you cannot control. The text asked you to leave quietly. We needed you to do that. For now, we need you to keep it quiet with the groom. If you trust us, we will keep you safe, and we will keep his wedding from turning into a public arrest in front of his friends. I imagined my son's face if officers walked between the tables. With hands raised, the cake, the toasts, the dance, all turned to noise and fear. I thought of my late husband's handkerchief folded in my clutch, soft from years of being held. A square of cloth that had seen births, graduations, now a wedding. I breathed through my nose, counted to 4, counted again. What do you need me to do? I asked. Cho closed his notebook. Not a sound, only the scratch of paper against fabric. We need you to listen, to look, to make a choice. We can move this conversation to tomorrow morning, to a place we can manage, where we can document without drawing eyes. We believe those who set this in motion will try again. They will want a signature. They will want a transfer. They will try to soften it with words about convenience and care. If you are willing, we will be close. We will equip you. You will not be alone. Nina folded her hands, the veins at her wrist a fragile map. I will help, Mrs. Hartley. I will be there in plain sight, pouring coffee, clearing plates, doing my job, looking like staff do, seen and unseen. The band hit a crescendo. Applause rolled through the concrete like distant thunder. I lifted the binder's corner. I let it fall. I felt the weight of it like a promise. I thought of my son's first day of school, his hand slipping from mine at the classroom door, the way he squared his little shoulders and walked in. I thought of doing the same thing now, for him, for me, for the life I had built, for the quiet I intended to keep. I will not tell my son, not tonight, I said. I will walk back in. I will smile. I will dance if he asks. I will leave when it is time. I will meet you where you need me to be. Ruiz nodded. Something like respect crossed her face. Thank you, ma'am. We will be ready. I took my clutch. I pressed the handkerchief to my lips once, a silent benediction. Then I slipped back through the gray door. The music swelled. The lights were warm. A server passed with a tray of champagne. The stems chimed. I walked toward my son, my steps measured, my voice steady, my secret a small, hard seed in the palm of my hand, waiting for morning. Nina led me to a quiet corner behind the catering racks, away from the hum of the loading bay. The black binder rested on the table like something breathing beneath its cover. She flipped it open and turned the pages toward me. Paper whispered against paper. The first sheet carried a bold title across the top, neat as a ledger line. The second bore columns, initials, and a signature block left waiting. These were on a vanity in the bridal suite, she said, next to a pen and a notary stamp. I checked our vendor roster. No one by that name exists. I traced a fingertip along the margin. A heading read, Caregiver Agreement. Another page referred to a post-nuptial transfer. The numbers were precise, the language crisp, the intention sharp. It named me as participant and transferred authority to a man I had met only this morning, my son's father-in-law, Charles Kent. Nina slid a photo from beneath the top page. I took this with my phone before they returned. The woman left the room to adjust lighting for photos. I knew I had seconds. The image showed the same papers, corner aligned with a glass of champagne. A small red ribbon circled the stem like a marker in a field. My stomach tightened. I remembered the tray, the laughter, the sparkle of glasses raised for a toast. I saw they set aside one flute with that ribbon, Nina continued. They told staff it was decorative, but I've worked here 3 years. We mark allergens with ribbons, not drinks for decoration. I thought of the untouched glass I'd left behind when the message reached me, the ribbon bright as warning. I swallowed. You believe it was meant for me? Her nod was slight. I can't prove it alone, but it was poured separate and no one else's glass carried red. The papers under my hand seemed to hum with quiet threat. If this is a contract, why hide it in plain sight? To rush you, to make it look ordinary, she said. The notary was ready, pen uncapped. The mother of the groom signing something generous, loving, during a celebration. Who would question that? The thought scraped like sand in my chest. You understand the risk you've taken bringing me this. Yes. Her breath came thin but steady. My employment agreement forbids sharing client materials. There's a clause, strict as iron. If management finds out, I could lose everything. You still came. I saw your name printed beneath words that weren't yours. She met my eyes. I wouldn't sleep if I stayed quiet. I looked again at the binder. Yellow tabs marked pages like small raised hands. Some held lists of assets, an annuity, a brokerage account, real property described in legal shorthand. Totals circled in pen, each figure exact down to the cent. I knew that kind of handwriting, confident, prepared, expecting to file before Monday. Behind us, the soft rush of air from the service vent brushed my ear. I felt the chill of calculation that had moved through this place while I'd pinned flowers to my son's lapel. Charles Kent, I murmured, tasting the syllables. He's attached to these? Every signature block lists him. Another space reads, Attorney in fact. That's what drew my attention first. A power of attorney. My breath hitched. I had drafted enough in my working years to recognize the bones of one even without the title bolded across the top. Nina turned one final page. There's also a transfer schedule. The amount listed matches the total on the previous sheet. It references your initials, a joint account, and a processing window. 48 hours. I studied the ink, the strokes deliberate, the margins aligned. It was all too careful, too rehearsed, like a ceremony performed behind another ceremony. They were in that room when you stepped out to greet guests, Nina said. They closed the door for light. The notary unpacked seals, lined everything square. I passed by carrying ice, saw documents spread on the table, saw your name. I thought it strange. I waited until one left, then I slipped in, took these images, printed copies in the office. She closed the binder, pressing down until the latch clicked. I brought them to security, but the guard on duty was new. He didn't know the names. I tried calling my manager. Then I remembered, I'm the one holding that title this weekend. The decision fell to me. Her gaze steadied. So I walked out here and waited for you. If I'm wrong, I lose my job. If I'm right, you keep your life intact. I placed my hand over hers. You did the right thing. She blinked once, hard. Sergeant Ruiz and Detective Cho will confirm what I saw. They sent that text the moment I showed them these files. They didn't want a scene inside. From the corridor came a faint echo, the lift of a violin, the applause of guests unaware. The contrast felt cruel, a beautiful day folding over a hidden edge. I drew a slow breath. Tomorrow they'll want me to sign. I imagine they'll call it a simple formality. Nina nodded. They set the time already. A brunch, 10:30. I heard them mention it. Then we have one night, I said. One night to keep this binder from turning into my signature. She looked at me, fear and resolve braided together. You won't face it alone, Mrs. Hartley. The binder's weight pressed against my palms. Its cover smelled faintly of toner and truth. I folded the flap, felt the click of metal rings beneath my thumb, and closed it as if sealing a wound. Tomorrow, I said, we show them I can still read the fine print. Detective Cho spread the binder's pages across a folding table beneath the dim light of the loading bay. The night breeze lifted the corners, carrying the smell of lake water and fuel. Sergeant Ruiz slipped on gloves, her movements crisp, deliberate. A kit opened with a soft snap, swabs, pouches, labeled evidence bags. Nina stepped forward, holding a single flute wrapped in linen. The red ribbon still circled its stem. This was poured with the others, she said. I swapped it out before the toast. Ruiz accepted it, sealed it in plastic. We'll send this for screening. If there's a trace sedative, the lab will find it. I watched the glass disappear into the evidence pouch. The memory of its sparkle on the tray flashed behind my eyes. The laughter, the polite clink of stems. Poison often hides best in celebration. Cho opened his notebook. Preliminary check shows more. The binder references a transfer. $1,180,000. It matches records we pulled from the brokerage feed this morning. He set down a printed sheet, columns of numbers, a timestamp from the bank's portal, a pending authorization flagged in red. My name appeared beside an arrow pointing outward. Someone started the process Friday evening, he said. They scheduled completion for Monday by noon. If signatures land before that, the funds clear in full. The figures blurred, then sharpened. That sum represented years of savings, cautious investments, everything my husband and I built line by line. Ruiz added another sheet. There's also debt pressure. Charles Kent owes $465,000 on a property loan. The demand notice sets a deadline, 8 p.m., May 25th. That's tomorrow night. I let the numbers sink in. The wedding, the brunch, the cheer, they weren't timing accidents. They were camouflage for urgency. So they host a celebration, I said slowly, while the clock ticks on a debt they can't pay. Cho nodded. A weekend crowd masks the motive. Banks closed, lawyers out of office, attention elsewhere. Signatures gathered under chandeliers look harmless. No one suspects a heist in formal wear. The hum of distant music pressed against the concrete walls. Somewhere above, a cheer went up, muffled and bright. Ruiz folded her arms. If we assume intent to defraud, the documents create control, the signature authorizes transfer, and the sedative, if confirmed, removes resistance. A clean sweep before Monday. My pulse thudded once, twice, measured as footsteps. They planned it down to the hour. Yes, Cho said. Even a fallback plan. A note in the binder mentions alternate timing, post-dinner, balcony staircase. I looked up sharply. A staircase? In accident narrative, he said. A second route if you refuse the pen. The crowd, the music, the rail by the water. One slip, one scream, then sympathy instead of suspicion. The edges of the room seemed to tilt. I gripped the table to steady myself. Ruiz's tone softened. You're safe now. We moved fast for a reason. Nina acted early. We have the physical copy, the swabbed glass, the digital trail, and a timeline that binds motive to opportunity. I breathed through my nose until the air found rhythm again. My son doesn't know any of this. Keep it that way for now, Cho said. The text asked you not to tell him. If he's unaware, he stays clear of suspicion and danger. He's kind, I whispered. Too kind to imagine malice sitting beside him. Kindness is not a shield, Ruiz replied gently. But it can be preserved if truth arrives first. I looked at the clock above the door, hands nearing 4 in the afternoon. In 36 hours, the deadline would strike. Between now and then stood a brunch, a signature, and a choice. What happens next? I asked. We set a controlled stage, Cho said. We let them think their plan still breathes. Tomorrow morning, 10:30, they'll expect your consent. We'll be close, unseen. You'll carry the signal when it's time. The word signal hung in the air like a key not yet turned. Nina gathered the binder, sliding pages back into order. Ruiz sealed the evidence bag with a firm press, then marked the label with time and date. Tonight you rest, Ruiz said. Tomorrow you act. Until then, silence keeps you safe. I nodded. Silence, my oldest discipline. I'd used it to teach patience, to mend grief, to steady numbers on a ledger. Now it would guard me through a night balanced between memory and motive. As they packed their kits, the wind shifted, carrying the faint echo of a love song through the loading bay door. I thought of Michael's smile, a vow spoken under warm light, of kindness still unbroken. Then I thought of ink waiting on a line and a plan written without mercy. I closed my hands around the handkerchief in my clutch and drew one clean breath. We have 36 hours, I said. Let's not waste one. The night folded itself into stillness, the kind that settles after music fades. By morning, the light over the lake was pale gold, spilling across hotel glass and polished stone. I stood in a small conference room off the lobby, a cup of untouched coffee cooling near my hand. Sergeant Ruiz adjusted a narrow camera along the arm of my glasses. Its lens caught the light once, then disappeared. This stays level with your eye, she said. It records what you see, not what you fear. If anyone questions the glare, say their prescription transition lenses. Detective Cho unlatched a small case, lifted a dark pen, and turned it between his fingers. Second layer, he said. Audio pickup, continuous. The clip hides the mic. Click twice. It stores a marker we can flag later. He set it beside a clutch of papers, copies of the same documents Nina found. A faint watermark shimmered across the pages, tiny dots arranged like constellations. And the third? I asked. Ruiz pointed to a simple pearl button at my collar. Press twice, fast for the distress signal. 2 taps only. Once it pings, we move. 90 to 120 seconds, no more. Her tone was calm, exacting. Each instruction landed like a rung on a ladder, a path out of fog. Nina entered, tablet in hand, face drawn from too little sleep. The Kents confirmed brunch at 10:30, penthouse level. I'll shift their setup. Same table, same papers, better light. Celeste's words, not mine. She loves a photo op. Ruiz nodded. Perfect. That line gives us cover. I looked at the lens, the pen, the button. Tools of quiet warfare. What if they change location again? New room equals threat, Ruiz said. Protocol says immediate trigger. You don't negotiate, you don't improvise. 2 taps. We breach. Cho glanced at me over his notebook. You're an accountant, yes? You know precision saves more than money. Think of this as balance sheets of risk. I almost smiled. Numbers had always steadied me. So did order, and faith in small, deliberate acts. Nina set down a folder. I'll be there, Mrs. Hartley, pouring coffee, clearing plates. If Celeste tests you, I'll guide her back with talk of sunlight. She wants everything to look perfect. We'll let her. I studied Nina, so young, yet standing firm inside a secret heavier than her years. You shouldn't risk your job, I said. She lifted a shoulder. Some contracts aren't worth keeping. The line settled between us, simple and true. Ruiz slid a final sheet across the table. A printed agenda labeled Sunday Brunch, Private Suite. Beside the list of menu items, a small mark, a code the team would recognize, hid among the flourishes. This is your stage, she said. Arrive 10 minutes early, smile. Mention the sum once, casually. Let them reveal need. If pressure builds, stall with confusion. The signal only when isolation begins, door closed, new room, or hands guiding you to sign. I repeated the steps softly. Lens on, pen clipped, button double tap, 90 seconds. The rhythm found its place in memory. Outside the window, gulls cut through the sky, their cries sharp, unwavering. Morning shimmered on the lake, a mirror of calm deceit. Will you be near? I asked. Next floor down, Ruiz said. Stairs, not elevator. We move faster that way. Cho capped his pen. You're not alone, Mrs. Hartley, just unseen. Unseen. It fit the day, a ceremony of shadows and surface smiles. I closed the clasp of my clutch, feeling the weight of the handkerchief folded within. My late husband's initials stitched in one corner, steady letters shaped by steadier hands. He once told me courage isn't loud, it's measured, like breathing. Nina reached for the binder. I'll cue Celeste with the light comment. Once she bites, we'll have them seated by the windows. You take the left chair. It gives your glasses the best angle. I nodded. Details became armor. Ruiz checked her watch. 10:30 sharp. From the moment you step in, our clock starts. Remember, new room equals SOS. 2 taps. We're through the door before the second hand completes a circle. The hum of the hotel deepened. Elevators gliding, breakfast carts rattling, voices swelling with the ease of vacationers. I lifted my eyes to the hallway mirror. The woman reflected back wore calm like a tailored suit. I'm ready, I said. Ruiz met my gaze. Approval quiet but clear. Then let's give them the show they planned for you, and the ending they never saw coming. The wedding hall shimmered with the soft exhaustion that follows vows and laughter. Waiters refilled glasses. The band eased into something slow, and sunlight slid across the parquet like silk. I stood at the edge of the dance floor, clutch in hand, watching my son, my Michael, turn toward me with that boyish smile that never learned suspicion. He opened his arms. "Mom, one dance before we go cut the cake?" The words tugged at every fragile thread in me. I stepped forward, let him guide me into the rhythm. His palm was warm against mine. The scent of champagne lingered on his sleeve. For a moment, it was only us, the same heartbeat I once rocked to sleep. "Thank you for coming, for everything," he said softly. "I know weddings can be a lot." I smiled. "It's your day. You deserve joy." He didn't hear the tremor I tucked beneath the word. My phone rested in my clutch, silent now, but heavy. Somewhere beyond the banquet doors, evidence waited under seal, and a plan ticked toward morning. Sabrina passed behind him, a hand gliding across his shoulder, her laughter bright, rehearsed. Celeste followed, eyes scanning the room with the precision of someone counting favors. Charles stood near the bar, raising his glass, silver cufflinks flashing like signals, a family tableau painted over cracks. Michael's gaze followed mine. "Everything okay?" I brushed his lapel, the boutonniere still perfect. "Just tired. All this light. It feels like noon twice over." He chuckled, easing. "We'll wrap soon. Sabrina wants to head upstairs, change shoes, maybe meet everyone at the lounge for a last toast." "Of course," I said. My voice stayed even, careful. The plan they thought I didn't know was blooming quietly, petal by petal. The song ended. Applause scattered like soft rain. I stepped back. "Go, enjoy your guests. I'll sit for a bit." He hesitated, studying me with that gentleness that always undid me. "Sure you're all right?" "I am," I said, and meant it differently. "Don't worry about me." Celeste approached, draped in gold chiffon, the smile practiced to mirror concern. "Everything all right, Mrs. Hartley? Long day for all of us." "Just catching my breath," I replied. "Good," she said lightly. "You must be ready for tomorrow. Big family brunch. We'll finalize the little things, make it official. Morning light is best for photographs." The phrasing landed with the quiet precision of code. Morning light. I heard Ruiz's briefing echo in memory. New room, new stage. Sabrina looped her arm through Celeste's. "We'll send some cake your way, Mrs. Hartley. Don't disappear too soon." Their voices trailed off into laughter as they drifted toward the exits. I turned back to Michael. He stood under the garlanded arch, looking for her, oblivious to the undercurrent swirling beneath polished smiles. I touched his cheek, brief and steady. "Go on, son. They're waiting." He caught my hand, squeezed once. "Love you, Mom." "Always," I whispered. He let go, and in that release, I felt the shape of every choice waiting for me come morning. The crowd shifted. Servers glided past with trays of champagne. I reached for one out of habit, then stopped. The glasses sparkled like a field of stars, indistinguishable except the one I'd left behind. The ribboned flute, the decoy that had never touched my lips. I set my hand down instead, folded my fingers around the linen of my clutch. The handkerchief within pressed back, a reminder stitched with my husband's initials. Steady now. I moved toward the corridor, keeping my smile gentle for the cameras. A bridesmaid waved. I waved back. The door by the catering station waited, half shadowed, half forgotten. I slipped through. Noise dulled behind me. Tile replaced carpet, air cooled and clean. My steps echoed light and sure. Outside, The lake shone through glass doors, calm, endless, holding secrets without ripple. In the quiet, I let one breath out slow. Tomorrow the light would change. Tomorrow paper would reveal intent. Tonight I would keep silence, not as surrender, but as shield. I pressed the handkerchief once more, then straightened. Time to walk back into the celebration, to smile, to blend, to let their scheme believe itself safe. My secret waited like dawn beyond the horizon. The hotel room overlooked the lake, a ribbon of silver under the half moon. The hum of distant traffic mixed with faint laughter, drifting from the lounge below. I sat at the desk, a lamp casting a soft circle of light over the papers spread before me. The decoy contract lay on top, crisp and deliberate, its watermark hidden like a whisper only truth could hear. Detective Cho had delivered it earlier, sealed in an envelope stamped with time and date. "This is the copy they'll push you to sign," he'd said, "except ours carries a traceable mark. Once your pen touches the line, we have proof. Chain of custody intact." Now I traced the faint shimmer along the margin, practicing the small motion of my signature, careful not to press too hard. My reflection flickered in the window. Steady posture, neat hair, eyes shadowed by resolve. I lifted a sheet of notes, phrases circled in ink. "I'm not sure about this transfer. Wasn't this settled last night? 1,180,000 seems high. Are you sure?" Each line built a pause, a stall, a mirror for their urgency. Ruiz had said hesitation was armor. Confusion could buy seconds, and seconds could bring safety. I whispered the sentences aloud, adjusting tone, cadence, the rhythm of uncertainty. "I'm a little lost about the numbers," I said, listening to my voice find the right tremor. Polite, bewildered, never accusatory. Too sharp and they'd sense defiance. Too soft and I'd vanish into compliance. From the nightstand, my phone buzzed once. A text from Michael. "Hope you're resting. Big day tomorrow. Love you." I stared at the words, simple and unguarded. He had no idea of the storm orbiting his name. I typed back, "Sleep well, son. Proud of you." Then I set the phone face down, the screen dimming into quiet. A knock sounded. 2 firm taps. I opened the door to find Sergeant Ruiz, jacket off, sleeves rolled, clipboard under one arm. "Just a quick run-through before morning," she said. She placed a small velvet box on the desk and opened it. Inside rested a pen identical to the one I'd used earlier, its clip gleaming under the lamp. "This is the decoy pen, pre-tested. It carries a serial imprint. You'll sign with it, hand it back if asked. Don't pocket it. They'll read suspicion in weight." I nodded, setting it beside the contract. "So I sign, but nothing binds." "Exactly. Ink meets watermark, and we trace every stroke. Think of it as a signature of truth." Ruiz glanced at the notepad covered in my handwriting. "You've been rehearsing." "I'm better with numbers than theater," I said. "Numbers keep stories honest," she replied. Her gaze softened. "You're doing well, Mrs. Hartley. Grace told me you once handled audits for small firms. You know what it means to keep records clean." The mention of Grace warmed me. Earlier, we'd spoken by phone. Her voice, steady as old oak, had threaded calm through the noise. "You don't need to fight loud," she'd said. "Just keep the page true." Ruiz checked her watch. 10:30 brunch. Nina confirmed seating near the window. "Remember? Button double tap if the setting changes. 90 seconds. We're through the door." I remember. She paused at the threshold. "Try to rest. Fear burns fuel you'll need at dawn." When the door closed, silence returned. Soft, almost reverent. I gathered the papers, slipped them into a folder marked draft. The decoy pen joined my clutch, nested beside the handkerchief. I turned off the lamp, leaving only the wash of moonlight across the carpet. The city lights blinked against the lake, reflections trembling like promises half kept. At the edge of the bed, I bowed my head, not in prayer, but in memory, of every ledger balanced, every lesson taught, every kindness offered without receipt. Justice, I reminded myself, is not revenge. It is correction. I lay back, eyes tracing the faint shadow of the curtain moving with the breeze. Tomorrow, they'd think they held the script. But I had learned to read fine print, to see the lines others tried to blur. Somewhere below, laughter flared again, then faded into hush. I closed my eyes around the shape of one vow. I would walk into morning steady, silent, ready. Morning lights spilled across the penthouse like a blessing dressed in deceit. White orchids leaned in crystal vases, linen napkins folded into careful triangles. Champagne flutes waited, their stems winking against the view of the lake. I arrived 10 minutes early, as instructed. The room smelled of citrus polish and brewed coffee, polished calm masking quiet intent. Charles Kent stood near the windows, back straight, suit flawless, a man born to broker advantage. Celeste fluttered beside him, pearls luminous at her throat, voice pitched sweet. Sabrina arranged gift boxes along a sideboard, her movements crisp, rehearsed. "Mrs. Hartley," Charles said, turning with a practiced warmth. "You found us. Hope you slept well." "I did," I replied. The sunrise was beautiful. Celeste clasped her hands. "Perfect light for photographs, don't you think? We wanted something intimate, just family, fewer distractions." Her eyes lingered on the glasses resting against my collarbone, assessing, approving. I smiled, letting stillness carry me forward. Nina entered quietly, carrying a silver tray of croissants. She placed them on the table, head bowed just long enough for our gazes to meet. One breath of reassurance, one silent, "I'm here." Charles gestured to a seat by the window. "Please, sit. We'll just tidy a few details before the honeymoon." I smoothed my skirt, settled the clutch on my lap. The handkerchief pressed soft against my palm. My heart found the rhythm of accounting, steady, incremental, exact. Celeste unfolded a folder, sliding it toward me. "This is only a draft, of course. Just some financial housekeeping, dear. You know how confusing paperwork can be after weddings." Her voice was sugared tea, meant to soothe while stirring. Charles laid a pen beside the folder. "Standard transfer clauses, joint accounts, caregiver provisions. Makes everyone's life simpler." I touched the cover, felt the subtle grit of watermark beneath my fingertips. "So considerate," I said, "though I thought we'd settled most of this last night." Sabrina looked up. "Last night?" I met her eyes, calm, curious. The talk about transferring funds, 1,180,000, wasn't it? Or am I remembering wrong? The number fell into the room like a stone into still water, ripples reaching each face. Charles blinked once, caught between denial and hunger. Celeste's hand stilled halfway to her coffee. Sabrina's smile thinned, stretched taut. Charles recovered first. "Ah, yes, rough estimate. These things fluctuate." Celeste leaned forward, her tone tender. "You've always managed money so wisely, Mrs. Hartley. We only want to ensure Michael and Sabrina have support in place. Think of it as a gift of stability." "A generous gesture," I murmured, "though I never rush large numbers. They deserve clear daylight." Nina stepped in smoothly, setting down a plate. Speaking of daylight, Mrs. Kent, the photographer says this window light is perfection. He can capture the signing beautifully if we start soon. Celeste brightened, tension folding into eagerness. Of course, we'll want every detail framed. Charles tapped the folder. Just a preliminary review. You can skim, sign later if you prefer. I prefer understanding before ink, I said, opening the cover. Rows of text, lines poised for signatures, columns ready to ferry worth from one name to another. Celeste poured coffee into my cup, her bracelets chiming. No rush, dear. We trust your judgment. Trust in her mouth meant expectation. I lifted the pen, examined the barrel, then laid it back down. Such faith deserves careful hands, I said. Perhaps you can walk me through these sections? I'd hate to misplace a decimal. Charles leaned in, eager to guide, unaware of the eyes behind mirrored lenses recording every gesture. The room breathed shallowly, as if waiting for an unseen cue. Sabrina fidgeted with her napkin. Mother, maybe we should— Relax, darling, Celeste said sweetly. Everything's ready. We'll have this settled before brunch cools. I folded one page back, aligning corners. 1,180,000. I repeated softly, as if tasting the number for accuracy. Yes, that's what I recall. The figure shines in memory. Charles laughed too quickly. Indeed. And once this is done, everyone can move forward. Clean slate. I glanced at Nina. She refilled my cup, her hand steady though her pulse jumped in her wrist. The lens in my glasses caught the glint of sunlight sliding across his cufflinks, each reflection a tick closer to confession. The lake beyond the glass was calm, holding the sky like a mirror. I let silence stretch, a thread drawn tight. Then I smiled, serene. Let's take it line by line. The coffee steamed between us, scent of roasted beans mingling with the faint salt from the lake breeze. Papers lay open like exposed nerves across the table. I traced a finger along a column of figures, pausing at the bold total, 1,180,000, then looked up, letting quiet hang just long enough to draw breath from the room. I keep returning to this amount, I said gently. It feels precise, not round, not guesswork. It reads like a payment, not a gift. Charles's jaw tightened. Celeste offered a smile stretched thin as ribbon. It's an estimate, dear. Couples need cushions. Emergencies happen. Emergencies, I repeated, turning a page. Like loans coming due? Silence blinked across their faces. Sabrina's fork slipped against her plate with a soft chime. Charles cleared his throat. Every family has obligations. Of course, I said. Still, the timing interests me. Memorial Day weekend, banks closed, signatures gathered while everyone celebrates. Feels almost urgent. Celeste reached for her coffee, missed the handle, found it again. We thought a holiday would be convenient. Fewer delays, no accountants underfoot. Or creditors, I added quietly. Her gaze snapped to mine, startled, then wary. A shadow flickered through her expression, quick as a cloud across glass. Charles shifted, his voice sharpening. Mrs. Hartley, I hope you're not suggesting— I'm suggesting nothing, I interrupted softly. I'm only reading what's on the page. Deadlines often hide in fine print. Perhaps there's one here. The pause stretched, taut as wire. Then Celeste exhaled, a sound half sigh, half defeat. 465,000, she said, barely above a whisper. It's a bridge loan, short term. We had every intention of settling it quietly. Charles shot her a glance, warning flickering behind his eyes. We don't need to involve her. But the dam had cracked. Celeste pressed on, words tumbling like loose beads. The maturity date is tomorrow evening, 8 o'clock. We miscalculated, some delays, unforeseen costs. The lender's impatient. Impatient, I echoed, folding my hands. Enough to push a wedding forward? Enough to weave signatures into vows? Charles's voice dropped low. You don't understand the pressure. Sabrina's new start, the reception, the expectations. Appearances matter. Sabrina flinched. We did it for Michael, she said quickly, desperation bleeding through sweetness. He deserves a stable future. This was just a way to secure it. Once the money moves, everything balances. I studied her, the shimmer of sincerity trembling against the scaffold of deceit. You mean once my account empties, your ledger clears? Her eyes filled, then hardened. You've never had to start over. You don't know what it's like, being one mistake from losing everything. I thought of every late-night reconciling numbers that never lied, of my husband's quiet faith, that honesty was wealth no bank could seize. I know exactly what it's like, I said. That's why I keep what's mine honest. Charles leaned forward, elbows on the table, voice turning coaxing. It's just business, family business. You sign today, we settle tomorrow, and no one outside this room needs to know. Secrets, I said, rarely stay seated. Nina set down a fresh pot of coffee, eyes lowered, face unreadable. The faintest nod passed between us, a marker logged, a confession caught. Celeste reached for my hand, soft fingers trembling. Please, Mrs. Hartley, you're kind. You've seen our family's heart. Help us fix this. After tomorrow, everything will return to normal. Normal. The word rang hollow. Nothing in their calm facade was built to last. I withdrew my hand slowly. I'm sure you believe that. But debts paid with deceit only rewrite the due date. Charles sat back, breath heavy. If you won't help, we have no options left. There are always options, I said. Some just prefer light over shadow. Outside, a gull cried over the lake, sharp and distant, the sound slicing through the air like truth. I reached for my cup, steady despite the tremor running beneath the table. Let's continue, I said softly. I'd like to understand every clause before I commit. Celeste straightened, blinking back the trace of panic. Charles adjusted his cufflinks, gathering composure. Sabrina looked away, eyes glistening. The surface calm returned, but the undercurrent had shifted. Confession, once loosed, never fully retreats. Nina poured coffee for each of them, her hand sure, her silence recording every syllable. And as steam rose between us, I felt the first fissure of their scheme widen, truth pushing through like dawn. The air in the penthouse shifted, the calm veneer thinning like ice under weight. Celeste leaned closer, voice dipping into silk. Let's revisit Section 4, dear. It just clarifies power of attorney, nothing unusual. I nodded slowly, tracing the page with one fingertip. The font was tidy, confident, each clause stitched tight. So many lines for something simple, I said, letting curiosity rise like steam. Do I need a notary present? Already handled, she replied too quickly. Everything's prepared. Her phone vibrated on the table, screen lighting up beside her cup. I glanced down before she could reach it. A notification blinked across the lock screen. Voice memo, 11:06. Push signature before 11:30. The words glowed for one sharp second, then dimmed. Celeste's hand darted out, covering the phone. Sorry, just a reminder, she said, laughter thin as glass. Photographer scheduling. You know how they are. Of course, I murmured. My heart stayed even, my breath measured. The lens in my glasses caught her motion, the telltale reflex of someone guarding more than a calendar. Nina approached with a fresh tray, setting down cups. Her eyes flicked once to the phone, memorizing the timestamp, then back to neutral. Charles's device buzzed next, a faint tremor against wood. He lifted it, thumb hovering, a hesitation born of guilt. The display tilted toward the light. 10:12, Broker Alvarez, a call still fresh in the log. He silenced it, pocketed the phone. "People never respect weekends," he muttered, but the quiver in his voice betrayed the truth. I tilted my head, gentle, curious. Broker Alvarez, that name sounds familiar. Investment? His gaze snapped to mine, then away. Old contact, irrelevant. "I see," I said softly. "Strange time for business on a Sunday." Celeste reached for charm, her smile returning like a mask set back in place. "Let's not get lost in details, Mrs. Hartley. The sooner we finish, the sooner everyone can relax." Nina leaned closer to refill water, her sleeve brushing my arm, a coded pulse of reassurance. She lifted her phone subtly, catching a reflection in the mirrored vase, snapping an image without sound. One photo, one proof, tucked behind Duty's face. I folded the top page over, aligning edges. "You've both been thorough," I said, "almost as if you've rehearsed." Celeste laughed softly. "We like order. It keeps life predictable." Charles tapped the pen against the table, impatience threading through the act. "Let's proceed. I'd prefer to conclude before noon." I met his eyes. Deadlines do create pressure. He froze, the slip landing where conscience still lived. Celeste's nails pressed against her cup, the porcelain clicking under strain. Sabrina spoke up, voice tremulous. "Mother, maybe we should let her—" "Stay calm, darling," Celeste cut in, each word brittle. "Your mother-in-law is simply being careful." "Careful?" I echoed, setting the pen down. "It's a virtue. My late husband used to say careful people sleep through storms." Outside, clouds drifted past the windows, shadows rippling over the floor like shifting intent. The room felt smaller, the light sharper. Nina cleared a few plates, her movement steady. As she turned, her eyes met mine again. Confirmation. Screenshot saved, evidence secured, both times logged. Celeste inhaled, smoothed her skirt, forced brightness. "Well, Mrs. Hartley, if you're satisfied, we can sign and celebrate. A toast before noon feels festive, doesn't it?" I lifted my cup instead. "To truth," I said. "It always finds daylight." Their smiles faltered, faint hairline cracks in porcelain composure. Somewhere beyond the door, the elevator chimed, a mundane sound, yet it carried the weight of a clock winding down. I let the silence breathe, long enough for tension to pool and cameras to capture. Each glance, each shift, each flicker of unease settled into record. Then I closed the folder gently. "Let's pause here. I'd hate to rush something worth this much." Charles forced a laugh that didn't reach his eyes. "Yes, well, patience is a luxury. Some of us can't afford it." "I found patience costs less than regret," I said. The clock on the mantel ticked toward 11, steady as resolve. I folded my hands, watching their unease ripple beneath politeness. Evidence was no longer hidden. It had shape, time, name. And it waited, quiet, unblinking, like truth itself. The elevator chimed again, and this time footsteps followed. Measured, familiar, closing the distance with ease that could only belong to my son. Michael stepped into the penthouse, still in his wedding suit, tie loosened, hair brushed by the lake breeze. The room shifted at once. Celeste's smile stiffened, Charles's shoulders locked. Mom, he said, warmth flooding his voice. They said you were up here. Thought I'd walk you down. I rose, smoothing the front of my dress. You should be with your guests. I wanted a quiet moment, he said, glancing around. Didn't realize there was a meeting? Charles recovered first. Just a bit of paperwork, Michael. Simple formalities, estate logistics. Your mother's very organized. Michael frowned, looking from folder to faces. Now? On our wedding weekend? Celeste's laugh fluttered too high. Only a review, dear. Families like ours plan ahead. He turned to me. You okay? I steadied my breath. I'm fine. They wanted clarity before you leave for your honeymoon. He stepped closer, resting a hand on my shoulder. You don't need to do this now. You've already done enough. Charles's tone softened, rehearsed. Michael, this benefits everyone. A seamless transition, fewer complications later. Complications? Michael repeated. What kind? Sabrina rose from her chair, voice light but strained. Honey, it's just financial housekeeping. My parents insisted. It's better to finalize while everyone's together. Michael looked at her, confusion settling across his face. Finalize what? Celeste reached for control. Sweetheart, your mother's funds are tied into joint accounts. Stop, he said gently but firmly. We can talk about money after we're back. Mom shouldn't be signing anything today. His words cut clean through the room. For a heartbeat, no one moved. Charles cleared his throat. Michael, you're young, but trust me. Timing matters. Markets move fast. Interest shifts. Your mother understands that. Michael's hand stayed on my shoulder, anchoring both of us. I understand respect, he said. And I don't like seeing her cornered during brunch. Sabrina reached for him. We're not cornering her. He shook his head, quiet but unyielding. Then give her space. It's her decision, not ours. The air thickened, fragile as glass. Celeste forced a smile. He's protective, that's sweet. But truly, Mrs. Hartley, you know this is routine. I interrupted softly. Routine rarely feels this crowded. Michael's eyes met mine, worry flickering. Do you trust them? The question hung like incense, sweet, suffocating, searching. I saw the kindness in his face, the innocence they had counted on. If he knew more, his heart would break before the vows cooled. I laid my hand over his. I trust you, I said. That's enough. He nodded, uncertain, but respect held him still. Charles attempted one last pivot. Michael, be a good son. Let your mother finish. Then we'll all toast and head downstairs. Michael's expression hardened. A rare sight. She doesn't owe you her signature. For a moment, I saw the boy he'd been. The one who refused shortcuts, who helped neighbors without being asked. Now that same decency stood between greed and paper. Sabrina's voice softened, trembling. We're just trying to start our life right. He turned to her, eyes gentle. Then let's start with honesty. The line landed like a gavel. Even Celeste's breath caught. I eased his hand away, offering calm. Go back downstairs, son. They'll join soon. Let me settle this quietly. He searched my face, sensing currents he couldn't name. If you're sure. I am. He exhaled, kissed my forehead. Don't let anyone rush you. I won't. He walked to the door, paused once, glanced back, then left, closing it softly behind him. The silence that followed was heavy, unadorned, unmistakable. Celeste broke it with a brittle laugh. He's sweet, naive, but sweet. He's good, I said. And goodness isn't naivety, it's clarity. Charles pushed the pen toward me, irritation cracking through polish. Let's not delay further. Time's wasting. I rested my fingers near the pen, meeting his eyes. Then we'd better make sure every word is worth it. Outside, the clock struck 11:15. Sunlight sharpened through glass, bright and revealing. Michael's decency had reset the room's rhythm. Now every gesture, every plea would land in daylight they could no longer control. The pen gleamed against the linen like a small blade of light. I sat poised at the table, the air taut as wire. Charles leaned forward, tapping one manicured finger on the signature line. Right there, Mrs. Hartley, just a formality. Celeste poured charm like syrup. Nothing binding, dear. We simply tidy the accounts, make sure you're comfortable. Think of it as a promise on paper. A promise. Such a soft word for something sharp enough to cut. I drew a slow breath, glancing toward the window where sunlight fractured across the lake. Nina adjusted a vase nearby, positioning herself at the edge of my vision. One nod, almost imperceptible. Steady, you're covered. I lifted the pen, felt its weight, a perfect twin to truth disguised as compliance. My fingers rested on cool metal, pulse steady beneath skin. You're certain, I said, voice mild. This is just a draft? No transfer executes without confirmation? Charles smiled, the confidence of a man too close to winning. Absolutely. Just a preview, nothing binding. You have my word. Words fade, I murmured, aligning the tip with the paper. Ink remembers. I traced the first letter of my name, each curve deliberate. Beneath the surface, the micro watermark waited, a constellation of proof. As the line formed, the pen's soft scratch filled the quiet. Sabrina leaned forward, breath caught between hope and guilt. Celeste clasped her hands. Wonderful. You'll see. This brings peace to everyone. Peace, I echoed, signing the final loop. A precious thing, when earned. I set the pen down gently, the sound small yet final. Nina stepped closer with a folder, sliding it beneath the draft as though collecting excess pages. Her thumb pressed a discreet mark at the corner, chain of custody sealed. Charles exhaled, relief softening into impatience. There now, that wasn't so hard, was it? I looked at the signature, ink dark, edges clean, intention masked by civility. Hard things often hide behind easy manners. Celeste poured champagne, hands trembling just enough to chime glass against glass. To family, she said brightly. I lifted my cup halfway, watching the bubbles climb. To clarity, I replied. Our eyes met. Hers flickered, unsettled. Charles reached for the folder, but Nina intercepted smoothly. I'll have copies printed downstairs, sir. Standard protocol. He hesitated, then nodded. Fine. Just be quick. She gathered the pages, moving toward the service door, each step measured to hide purpose. The decoy now bore truth's invisible fingerprint, a silent witness folded, under her arm. I dabbed at the corner of my mouth with a napkin, as though the act required ceremony. I'd like to review the power of attorney section once more, I said. Some terms felt broad. Celeste laughed, too shrill. Oh, Mrs. Hartley, you're thorough. Everything's in order. Then a second reading won't harm, I answered. Charles's composure cracked. We've covered enough. Enough, I said softly, is rarely honest. He opened his mouth, shut it again. Across the room, the clock marked 11:25. Sunlight sharpened, drawing long bars across the floor, gilding the edges of deceit. Sabrina shifted in her seat, whispering, Mother, maybe we should slow down. Celeste waved her off, but the tremor in her wrist betrayed her. I placed my folded handkerchief atop the table, fabric white against dark wood. My husband's initials glimmered faintly, a small vow stitched in thread. I touched them once, grounding myself. Charles broke the silence with forced cheer. Let's reconvene in the next room. Better light, quieter space. We can finish there. The phrase landed heavy, familiar. Better light. The cue Ruiz had warned me of. I smiled, calm as dusk before storm. Of course, I said, rising. Lead the way. Beneath my collar, the pearl button waited for my touch. I promise hidden in plain sight. 90 seconds from signal to entry. As we moved toward the door, I let one last glance fall upon the signed page. Proof and trap intertwined. I adjusted my glasses, the lens catching sunlight like a spark. It's remarkable, I said, voice even, how much truth a single signature can hold. They didn't hear the meaning. They rarely do. Celeste's heels clicked across the marble as she led the way, her voice floating ahead like perfume. The light in the smaller lounge is divine at this hour, she said. Perfect for signatures, perfect for photos. Behind her, Charles gathered the folder, tucking it beneath his arm, the gesture brisk, proprietary. Sabrina trailed beside him, silent now, eyes distant. I followed, clutch resting lightly in my hands, fingers brushing the smooth curve of the pearl button beneath my collar. One touch would be enough, 2 taps, and truth would arrive in uniform. We reached the corridor, carpet muffling our steps. Sunlight streamed through tall windows, gilding dust motes that hung like suspended breath. My reflection followed me in the glass, poised, composed, a woman walking toward the heart of her own undoing and smiling. The smaller lounge waited at the end, door half closed. Inside, curtains flared with breeze, scattering light across polished tables. Too bright, too quiet. I stepped over the threshold, every sense alert. Celeste turned, a practiced smile painted over strain. See? Much better. Cameras love natural light. Charles set the folder down, shoulders tight. Let's wrap this up quickly. Sabrina hovered by, the doorway, gaze flicking between me and the hallway, as though measuring distance to escape. I took in the scene, the repositioned chairs, the drawn drapes, the convenient isolation. Not a waiter in sight, not even Nina. The hum of the main dining room was gone, replaced by stillness sharp enough to slice. Celeste gestured to a chair. Sit here, dear. The light frames your profile beautifully. I smiled, lowering myself into the offered seat. You do think of everything. Her laugh wavered. Years of hosting, that's all. My clutch rested on the table, half open. Inside, the handkerchief waited, folded over courage. My thumb brushed the pearl button once, then again. 2 quiet taps, no louder than a heartbeat. Beneath the surface of civility, the signal pulsed outward, unseen but certain. Ruiz's words replayed in memory. Change of room, press twice, and hold your ground. Mrs. Hartley, Charles began, sliding the papers closer. Let's not complicate what's simple. Simple, I said, scanning the first page, is such a comforting word for irreversible things. Celeste shifted behind me. Oh, don't be dramatic, dear. You'll feel better once it's done. I feel fine now. I lifted my gaze, calm and direct. But you might not, once the light changes. Her brows knit. What? From the hall came the faintest echo of movement. A door closing somewhere, footsteps in unison, clipped, decisive. Celeste didn't hear it yet. She was too busy reaching for control. Charles, she said sharply, hand her the pen. He obliged, pushing the same gleaming barrel toward me. Just your name, Mrs. Hartley. One final flourish. I placed my palm flat on the table instead, feeling the steady thud beneath skin. Not fear, but arrival. "Funny," I said. "How the brighter the room, the clearer the cracks." Sabrina's voice broke first. "Mother, something's wrong." "Quiet," Celeste hissed, eyes darting to the hallway. "You're imagining things." A gust of wind lifted the curtain, spilling sunlight across the floor in widening stripes. The shimmer caught the silver clasp of my clutch, the thread of my husband's initials, the reflection in my glasses, each one a mirror signaling truth. Outside, footsteps quickened, measured, closing. A faint murmur crackled from the comms in my collar, almost lost to the sound of my pulse. "Hold position. 90 seconds. Celeste bent toward me, the mask slipping. "If you're trying to stall, don't. You'll regret it." I met her gaze, steady as still water. "No, Mrs. Kent. Regret is for those who sign what they don't understand." Her mouth opened, ready with another lie, when a new sound cut through the air. Boots striking marble, the slam of a door thrown wide, and a voice clear and commanding. "Police! No one move!" The pen froze in Charles's hand. Sabrina gasped, half rising from her chair. Celeste went white, her practiced poise shattering like glass underfoot. I stayed seated, hands folded, calm as dawn. "I told you," I said quietly. "The light here is perfect." The command hit the room like a thunderclap. "Police! No one move!" The words carved through silk and ceremony, scattering every lie still trying to stand. Charles jerked back, the pen clattering across the table. Celeste's breath snagged, a soft gasp swallowed by fear. Sabrina froze near the door, half turned toward escape, half rooted in disbelief. The first officer swept in, motion precise, voices firm but measured. Hands visible, step away from the table. Another followed with a camera harnessed to her chest, lens blinking red, recording everything that had been whispered, signed, concealed. Sergeant Ruiz emerged behind them, steady as a metronome, eyes locking on mine for one beat of confirmation. I gave a single nod. She turned to her team. "Secure the room, collect the folder, the devices, every document in play." Detective Cho entered next, gloves already on, voice even. "Mrs. Hartley, remain seated. We have you." Nina slipped in behind them, tray still in hand, apron unruffled. She set it down gently, composure intact despite the tremor beneath. Our eyes met, silent gratitude passing between two women who had chosen daylight over safety. Charles found his voice first, rough and breaking. "This is insane. You can't storm a private brunch." Ruiz cut him clean. "Search warrant covers the premises, Mr. Kent. Step aside." Celeste's hands fluttered to her pearls. "We were only finalizing paperwork. It's a misunderstanding." Cho held up the recovered folder, flipping it open. Draft contract, power of attorney clause, unauthorized transfer authorization, total value $1.18 million. He lifted the top sheet toward the light. The micro watermark shimmered faintly across the page. "And a verified decoy signature under chain of custody. This document's been monitored since 10:30. Her face drained, lips parting with no sound left behind. Another officer produced an evidence bag. Ruiz nodded toward the champagne flutes still on the sideboard. "Collect those, especially the one marked red ribbon." A technician moved swiftly, tagging each glass, sealing them one by one. Cho added a clear pouch containing Celeste's phone. Device logged. Lock screen shows voice memo at 11:06. Push signature before 11:30. He turned toward Charles. "And your call log at 10:12. Contact, Broker Alvarez. We have the screenshot." Charles stepped back, shoulders collapsing inward. You don't understand. We just needed funds, I finished quietly. Before 8 p.m. tonight. His eyes snapped to mine, recognition cutting deeper than accusation. Celeste rounded on me, desperation rising. You set us up. No, I said softly. You wrote the script. I just read it aloud. Ruiz gestured to her officers. Detain all three. Fraud, conspiracy to defraud, attempted coercion. Read rights as you move. Sabrina's tears came fast, words tumbling through them. I didn't know it would go this far. They said it was temporary, just a signature, a cushion. Ruiz's voice stayed level. You'll have counsel to explain your part. Celeste reached toward her daughter, wrists already guided into cuffs. Don't say anything. We can fix this. Sabrina's gaze slid to me, wet and trembling. I wanted to protect him, your son. I met her eyes. Then you should have started with truth. The officers guided them toward the corridor, their footsteps a steady percussion fading down the hall. Nina exhaled, a shaky sound breaking the silence left behind. Cho gathered the last of the evidence, papers sealed, glasses tagged, devices logged. All items recorded, Sergeant. Chain confirmed. Ruiz turned to me. Mrs. Hartley, you did exactly as briefed. 2 taps, clear room, 90-second window. I folded my hands, the handkerchief soft between my palms. 90 seconds can save a lifetime. She smiled faintly. That they can. Outside, radios crackled, relaying orders, confirming routes. Beyond the glass, the lake shimmered under late morning sun, as if nothing had shifted at all. Nina stepped closer. It's over, ma'am. Almost, I said. The truth still needs witnesses. Cho closed his notebook. You have them now. I rose, smoothing the fabric of my dress, the tremor finally easing from my hands. The table still bore the impression of the pen where I'd signed, faint but real, a line drawn not in surrender, but in proof. I looked once more at the bright room, the scattered light, the echo of deceit dissolving into order. Let's finish this properly, I said. Ruiz nodded toward the door. Next stop, Holding Bay. Then we move on the lender. The path was set, each step precise as the click of handcuffs. And as we walked out, I felt the quiet settle. A justice measured, lawful, inevitable. The hallway opened into a hush of polished marble and muted echoes. Outside, the sky had cleared, bright and weightless, its calm a strange mirror to the storm that had just passed. As officers led the Kents toward the elevators, radio chatter flared softly in the distance. Clipped voices, coded confirmations, one phrase repeated, Target 2 in custody. Sergeant Ruiz slowed her pace, hand to her earpiece. Copy that. Alvarez detained. Parking garage, level 3. She turned toward me, her voice lowering. The lender, Vico Alvarez. He tried to leave through the service ramp. Unit Bravo intercepted before he reached the exit. I paused by the glass balustrade, looking down at the courtyard where morning spilled over chrome and stone. A black sedan idled near the loading bay, doors flung open, agents moving with practiced rhythm. Even from above, I could see the slump of shoulders that understood consequence too late. Detective Cho joined us, tablet in hand. We recovered his ledger, Mrs. Hartley. Payment entries match transfers from Charles Kent's account. Same time stamps as the call log, 1012. Pressure, motive, connection, all confirmed. I nodded once. Debt makes clever men careless. Careless enough to corner the wrong woman, Ruiz said. We walked on, past startled guests craning for explanations, their whispers chasing us down the corridor. I kept my eyes ahead, posture steady. Every sound, The soft zip of an evidence pouch, the click of radio keys, the echo of measured steps, felt like punctuation in a sentence finally ending. Near the penthouse door, Michael appeared, confusion painted across his face. "Mom, what's happening? I saw police in the lobby." He moved toward me, eyes wide, voice urgent. "They said your name. Are you all right?" I reached for his hand, closing mine over it before the question could bloom into fear. "I'm fine, sweetheart. It's handled." He glanced past me, catching sight of Sabrina between two officers, wrists bound, tears streaking through makeup that no longer glittered, only smudged. "Sabrina?" His voice cracked. "Why are they—" She tried to speak. A soundless plea pressed against the air, but Celeste pulled her gaze away, pride clinging to silence, even as metal cuffs gleamed at her wrists. Michael turned back to me, lost. "Mom, what is this?" I steadied his hand, the warmth of his palm still innocent, still unknowing. "There are things you didn't see," I said softly. "I needed you clear of them." He shook his head, bewildered. "You mean today? The brunch? I don't understand." "You don't have to," I said, squeezing his fingers once, the way I had when he was small and frightened by storms. "All you need to know is that you're safe, and the people you love made choices they couldn't undo." His eyes searched mine, fragile hope wrestling with dawning truth. "You knew?" "I did," I said, "and I stayed quiet so you could have your day. A wedding without arrests, without headlines, without shame. Sometimes love means letting a moment breathe before the air clears." Emotion tightened his throat. He blinked hard. "You protected me." "I protected what's good in you," I whispered. "That's what mothers do." Sabrina's sob reached us, faint but sharp. Michael turned, tears breaking free. "I thought we were building something honest," he said to her, voice trembling. "Was any of it real?" She opened her mouth, but no words came, only regret, heavy and late. Ruiz gave a quiet signal. Officers guided the Kents forward. Celeste's heels clicked once more, no longer in command, but in custody. Charles kept his head low, shoulders stooped under the weight of schemes collapsed. Sabrina lingered a step behind, eyes shining. "Mrs. Hartley?" I met her gaze, with calm finality. "Truth finds everyone, dear, even those who hide behind vows." She lowered her eyes, the echo of her wedding band catching the light before she was led away. Silence filled the space they left behind. Michael turned to me again, voice breaking. "How do we move on from this?" I brushed a tear from his cheek. "By walking forward, one honest step at a time." He pulled me into a hug, strong and trembling, the same embrace he'd given as a boy after bad dreams. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "There's nothing to forgive," I said, resting my chin against his shoulder. "Kindness is never wrong. It's just easily wounded." Outside, an officer's radio clicked. Secondary target secured. All assets frozen. The words drifted in through the open door. Confirmation, closure, consequence. I exhaled slowly, the air leaving me like a held breath finally released. Michael drew back, eyes still wet. "You'll stay tonight? We can figure out the next steps together." "I'll stay," I said. "We'll start again, with truth, not contracts." He nodded, the faintest smile breaking through sorrow. "I don't deserve you." "No one earns love, son," I replied. "They honor it." Beyond the glass, lake water shimmered under the noon sun, untroubled, forgiving. Somewhere below, a siren wailed once, then faded, swallowed by distance. The storm had passed, only the calm remained. The courtroom smelled of varnish and paper, old wood polished to a dull shine, documents stacked in neat, heavy piles. Morning lights slanted through narrow windows, striping the benches with gold. I sat beside Detective Cho at the witness table, hands folded, the handkerchief tucked neatly in my lap. Across the aisle, the Kents occupied the defense row, each in a shade of remorse. Charles rigid, Celeste brittle, Sabrina pale and silent. The judge adjusted his glasses, voice measured. We will now hear the evidence presented by the prosecution. The prosecutor stood, a man of few words and careful cadence. Your Honor, Exhibit A, the audio recordings recovered from the devices in the penthouse suite, time-stamped 11:06 a.m. He pressed play. Celeste's voice filled the room. Honey turned sharp. Push signature before 11:30. Photographer waiting. No witnesses. A murmur rippled through the spectators. Celeste stared at the table, pearls trembling at her throat. Exhibit B, the prosecutor continued, phone records confirming a call placed at 10:12 a.m. from Charles Kent to broker Alvarez, arranging payment contingent upon funds released from Mrs. Hartley's account. Cho passed the printed logs to the clerk, pages marked with red tabs. Charles rubbed a hand across his mouth, knuckles white. Exhibit C, the prosecutor said, holding up a clear pouch. Inside, the decoy contract shimmered faintly. The document signed under surveillance, bearing a micro watermark traced to law. Enforcement custody. A controlled decoy used to capture intent. He set it on the evidence rail, light glancing off ink that had never bound me but had sealed their fate. Exhibit D, toxicology screening on the champagne flute retrieved before the ceremony. Results indicate a sedative compound sufficient to impair cognition. At that, Celeste's composure fractured. It was only a precaution, she blurted, then froze as her attorney pressed a hand to her arm. The judge's gavel struck once. You will remain silent, Mrs. Kent. The prosecutor nodded toward me. Mrs. Hartley, can you confirm this was the glass poured for you? I rose, voice steady. Yes, Your Honor. It was marked with a red ribbon. He inclined his head. Let the record reflect witness identification. Returning to his table, he arranged the exhibits in precise alignment. Together, these materials establish motive, $465,000 in debt, and method, coercion, forgery, and attempted fraudulent transfer of $1,180,000 from the victim's assets, each act performed under false pretenses during a family event designed to disarm. The defense attorney stood, voice thin. Your Honor, my clients acted under stress, believing the transfer would preserve family unity. The prosecutor turned, calm and unyielding. Family unity does not require sedatives or forged powers of attorney. The judge leaned forward. I have heard enough. Silence settled, deep and final. Then came the verdict. Charles Kent, guilty on counts of fraud, conspiracy, and attempted coercion. Celeste Kent, guilty on same counts. Sabrina Kent, guilty of complicity and fraud, reduced for cooperation. The gavel struck twice. Sentencing, 12 to 16 years, restitution to the victim, and protective order prohibiting contact with Mrs. Hartley. Charles sagged, a man measuring walls closing in. Celeste stared ahead, tears gathering, unfallen. Sabrina covered her face, sobbing into trembling hands. The prosecutor nodded to the clerk. Restitution shall include repayment of legal fees and recovery of withheld assets. I remained seated, heart steady, breath even. Justice here was not loud. It was orderly, precise, without triumph or cruelty. Michael rose from the spectator bench, approaching the rail with permission from the bailiff. He met my gaze across the room, eyes bright with apology. "Mom," he said softly, voice breaking. "I never saw what they were doing. I should have protected you." I shook my head gently. "You protected who you are. That's enough." He swallowed hard, tears spilling unchecked. "I remember the smell of cinnamon in your kitchen, the mornings you balanced ledgers before dawn. You taught me honesty. I forgot how heavy it feels until now." I offered a small smile. "Then carry it again. It builds strength." The judge cleared his throat. "Mrs. Hartley, thank you for your composure and cooperation. This court commends your courage." I inclined my head. "Thank you, Your Honor. I only wanted truth recorded." The gavel fell once more, echoing like closure. Officers guided the Kents toward the side door, their footsteps muted on the polished floor. Sabrina turned once, eyes glistening, not asking forgiveness, only acknowledging the shape of consequence. As the doors swung shut behind them, sunlight reached across the bench, warm and unflinching. Cho gathered his notes. Ruiz gave a slight nod. It was done. Not vengeance, but correction, clean as the sound of pages turning. Michael joined me at the table, his hand closing around mine. "Let's go home," he said. I rose beside him, the handkerchief folded neat in my palm, initials glinting softly in the light. "Home," I echoed, "where truth belongs." Evening settled over the lake like a sigh, soft light folding across the water in sheets of gold. The hotel was quiet now. Flowers cleared, tables bare, silence stitched through every corridor that had once hummed with music. I sat on a small terrace overlooking the docks, a cup of chamomile cooling between my hands. The weight of the last 2 days hung close, yet not heavy, only real. Nina approached, her steps careful on the wooden planks. She carried an envelope bound in cream ribbon, edges pressed sharp, her name written across it in my hand. "You didn't have to," she said, voice trembling between gratitude and disbelief. "I did," I replied, "because courage should leave more than bruises. It should leave doors open." She untied the ribbon, fingers shaking. Inside lay a check folded once, crisp and certain, and a short letter written in my tidy script. "For tuition, final year, and 1 year's housing. Continue to speak truth, even when silence is safer." Nina blinked hard, eyes shining. "Mrs. Hartley, I don't know what to say." "Say you'll finish what you started," I told her. "You saw what others ignored. You acted before fear could teach you regret." Tears slipped free. She caught them with the back of her hand, laughing softly. "I only wanted to do what was right. And that," I said, "is never small." We sat together, the air faint with jasmine, the hush between us gentle. Below, the water lapped against the dock's pylons, steady as a heartbeat. Footsteps echoed behind us. Michael approached, jacket draped over his arm, sleeves rolled, humility replacing the ease he once mistook for strength. He looked from me to Nina, offering a faint smile. "You're the one who helped her," he said quietly. Nina rose, shy but steady. "Just someone in the right hallway at the right time." He extended his hand. "Thank you. You kept my mother safe." She shook it once, firm. She kept herself safe. I only held the door. When she walked away, the last glow of sunset framed her silhouette, a young woman carrying both risk and reward in equal measure. Michael slid into the chair beside me. "They're being transferred tonight," he said. "The court ordered restitution. The accounts are frozen. Everything's ending and beginning." I nodded. Endings and beginnings share the same breath. He hesitated. Sabrina wrote a letter. She says she's sorry. Says she lost herself trying to build a life that looked perfect. Perfection is a story that devours its authors, I said softly. But remorse is a start. He stared out at the water, voice low. I'm staying here for now. No honeymoon, no headlines. Just space to think. Maybe help you with the community office, if you'll have me. I smiled, small and sure. I'll always have you, but you'll help as a man who learned, not one who hides. He nodded, relief loosening his shoulders. I'll learn. For a while, we watched the lake, boats anchored in still water, gulls gliding toward dusk. In the distance, the courthouse dome caught the last light, glinting like the truth it held. Michael reached for my hand. You've always said honesty is inheritance. I finally understand. I squeezed his fingers. Then carry it well. It weighs less than gold and lasts longer. He laughed quietly, the sound clean, unburdened. From my clutch, I drew the folded handkerchief, the initials HH pale from years of washing. I smoothed it against my palm, fabric soft as memory. Your father would be proud, I said, not for what we gained, but for what we refused to lose. A breeze lifted the edges, cool and fragrant with salt. Nina's laughter carried faintly from below, mingling with the creak of mooring ropes and the hush of evening. I stood, looking out where the horizon met the first stars. At my son's wedding, I whispered. A text told me to leave quietly. I obeyed and kept my dignity. Michael rose beside me, following my gaze. And now? He asked. Now, I said. We walk forward. No secrets, no shadows. He slipped his arm around my shoulders as we turned toward the lights of the path. Behind us, the lake mirrored the sky, dark, deep, and forgiving. Ahead, the world waited, washed clean,